So something a little bit different with this video. It's going to be the top 10 albums of 1994. Now, I've done a lot of top 10 lists, but I have not done top 10 from a specific year yet. I did top 15 of 2018, but first top 10 from a year, I picked 94 because it's the 25th anniversary, and I also thought it would be kind of easy to do, which it's actually taken me a few days to narrow this down because there's a lot more really good albums than I initially thought from 94, but a lot of good stuff to choose from. A lot of different genres of metal that were pretty big at the time. Death metal, black metal, traditional, thrash, whatever. A lot of stuff. And I'll say some honorable mentions after I say what I have for number 2, so to keep you on the edge of your seat wondering if what album you like is going to make it. And then it won't, and you'll be mad. But here we go. Top 10. Starting things off at number 10 is going to be Irrelevant by the band Slick Toxic. Now, this was a really underrated band. They formed back in 1988 and were only together till 94. They broke up shortly after this album was released, unfortunately. 2 albums total. The first one came out in 92 and was a bit more of like a glam metal style album, but this one shifted away from that pretty much completely and was like heavier and darker, pretty angry at times. I'd say my top 3 favorites on the album are 20-something, Kill the Pain, and Dive. But a lot of really good tracks all over it, and I would best compare the sound to like the heavier stuff of Alice in Chains mixed with some early 90s Ozzy Osbourne stuff. And the singer Nick Walsh sounds a little bit like Axl Rose, but still very much an original sound by him. So some really good stuff here. About an 8 out of 10 album if you ask me. Pretty underrated pick, but I really like it. So number 10, Irrelevant, Slick Toxic.
Of a burning dark, a darkness which illuminates you.
In at number 9 is going to be Cross Purposes by Black Sabbath. Now, this was their 4th album to feature Tony Martin on vocals, and it wasn't quite as good as their first 3 with him, but it's still very good. He's a great singer that's pretty overlooked, but Tony Iommi is still there, laying down a bunch of amazing riffs, so that should be enough to check this album out if you haven't done so yet. I'd probably say Eyewitness, Cross of Thorns, and Immaculate Deception are my top 3 favorites on it, but a lot of great stuff throughout. I would probably give it about an 8 out of 10 rating. Very solid. Number 9 of 1994, Cross Purposes. Possibly the absolute dumbest and most annoying thing that metal fans say is that the only 2 good Annihilator albums are the first 2. Not even close to correct. They have a ton of good albums after the first 2. Just because they're not quite as good as the first 2 doesn't mean they're bad. Sure, they're not masterpieces like the first 2, but they're still good, including King of the Kill. This is a solid 8 out of 10 album. Jeff Waters did the singing on it, his first time doing that. He is not a terrible singer, sounds pretty good. I'd say my top 3 favorite songs on it are 21, Hell is a War, and the title track, but a lot of solid stuff mixed in here. Jeff is an absolute beast on guitar. Every single solo he does is amazing. Great riffs. As I said, 8 out of 10. Definitely give it a listen if you haven't done so yet. Number 8 of the year, King of the Kill by Annihilator. In at number 7 is going to be Death Row by the band Accept. Now, I'm not like a diehard Accept fan or anything, but this is a really good album. Very fast, heavy, raw sounding, great tone. I would probably say my favorite songs on it are Sodom and Gomorrah. Bad Religion, and Guns R Us, but a lot of really good stuff mixed in throughout the album. Probably my favorite Accept album if I was going to pick one, but I'd probably give it about a 9 out of 10 rating, so we're in that range now. The rest of the stuff will be 9 or better. So yeah, Death Row Accept number 7. At number 6 is going to be Sly with their self-titled debut album. Now, Sly was a supergroup from Japan back in the 90s. They were only together for about 4.5 years, but they put out 4 albums in that short time. So they were a machine. All the albums they released were pretty dang good. This one might be the best, their first from 94, obviously, but I'd give this album a 9 out of 10. And if you're wondering, the supergroup actually consisted of Loudness members Minoru Nihara on vocals and Munetaka Higuchi on drums. And then the guitar player, let me get my glasses for this because I can't remember these guys' names exactly, Shinichiro Ishihara, who was in the band and still is Earthshaker, another pretty big hard rock metal band from Japan, and bass player Koichi Terasawa, who was in the band Blizzard, which is another really good underrated metal band from the 80s from Japan. But the top 3 songs on this album, looking at the track listing here, I'd probably say Kingdom Come, Silent Thunder, and Sister without question. Some really good stuff on it. Definitely recommend checking it out. A solid 9 out of 10 album. Freaking Sly, self-titled. Into the top 5 now, and starting it out is going to be The Seventh Sign by Yngwie Malmsteen. Now, this was his first album to feature Mike Vescara on vocals. A really great singer, probably my favorite that he ever had. He sang on this album and Magnum Opus, which came out in '95. 2 of his absolute best albums, probably both top 5 of his whole career. So great albums with Mike, great singer, helps a lot. But I'd probably say my top 3 favorite songs on this are Pyramid of Cheops, Never Die, and I Don't Know, but a lot of really great stuff throughout. Yngwie shreds as usual, but I give this album a strong 9 out of 10 rating. The Seventh Sign, number 5 of 1994. Finally, some black metal here. In at number 4, Svartalvheina by the band Ancient. They are a Norwegian black metal band formed in the early 90s, and this is their debut. It is a great album, one of my favorite debut albums in black metal, and one of my favorite black metal albums in general. There was just 2 guys playing on the album. It was a guy named Faisal, is what he was going by at the time, on guitar and keyboards and bass, and then you had a guy named Grim on vocals and drums. Now, Grim, I love his voice. It's a great black metal voice, you know, very evil and like kind of raspy sounding, you know how it is with black metal vocalists, but his voice fits the music really well, and the music on it is very raw and like chaotic at times, but then it's like more melodic at certain points, so I like the nice little mix that they did on this. Great album. I'd probably say my top 3 favorites on it are Trumps of an Archangel, The Call of Absu Deep, and Lickford, but great from start to finish, nothing bad on it, and it's a strong 9 out of 10 album. Freaking, that is it. Svartalvheina, if I'm pronouncing that correctly, by Ancient, number 4. In at number 3 is going to be Time by Merciful Fate. Definitely one of their best albums. I'd probably say my top 3 favorite songs on it are Angel of Light, The Witch's Dance, and Nightmare Be Thy Name. Michael Denner and Hank Sherman, an amazing guitar duo. Great stuff from them as usual. And then King Diamond, of course, amazing vocalist. And he was an absolute machine when it came to songwriting back then, releasing albums between the band King Diamond and Merciful Fate almost every year for like 15 years or 20 years straight. Absolute beast. So I'd give this album a 9.5 out of 10. Definitely, easily a 9.5 out of 10. Time, number 3. Taking the number 2 spot is going to be Far Beyond Driven by Pantera. A ton of great stuff on the album, but I'd probably say my top 3 favorites are Becoming, Slaughtered, and 5 Minutes Alone. And this was actually the heaviest album to debut at number 1 on the Billboard 200 chart, so that's pretty cool. And it was also the first album in which Dimebag Darrell, like, officially was known as that in the credits, but before this he was known as Diamond Darrell, as some of you probably know. And definitely give this album a strong 9.5 out of 10. And before I get to number 1, some honorable mentions that were all very close to making it, but just didn't quite make the cut. You know, you have Cradle of Filth's debut, Emperor's debut. Let's see, what else was there? Sleaze Bees, great album from '94. Loudness and Slayer, those were the closest, but there was also some other stuff. Marduk has a good album from '94. Enslaved. So tons of great stuff to choose from. Just these are my personal top 10. So on to number 1. Yet another masterpiece by Megadeth. In at number 1 is going to be Youthanasia. Great album from start to finish. I'd probably say my top 3 favorite songs on it are Victory, The Killing Road, and the title track. But you can't go wrong with anything because it's all great. Amazing musicianship from everybody in the band as usual. And I'd probably say Dave Mustaine's voice was at its peak here. It sounded really good on the album. So I'm going to give this a perfect 10 out of 10 rating. And those were my top 10 favorite albums of 1994. So as usual, you can let me know what you thought in the comments and give me your ranking if you want to. And until next time, thank you for watching.